Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the latest instalment of the Confessions of a Business Owner webinar. And I'm absolutely delighted this afternoon to welcome Emily and Laura Leyland from Fresh Perspective Resourcing. And we're going to chat about why the traditional model is broken and really what's driving these two amazing ladies to be building the business they are. So ladies, good afternoon to you.
Hi. Hello.
And how are you today?
Good, thanks. Yeah, good for a Monday.
For a
Monday.
Good for a Monday. So just for those that are tuning in, just give us a little bit, 2-minute whip. How old's the business? How long have you been going? How many have you got in the team? And what's your main focus?
Well, yeah, go on then. We've been going just over 4 years. So May 2016 is when we started the business. There's 6 of us in total, including me and Emily. What was the other bit?
What's our focus?
What's our focus?
Taking over the world?
Yeah, revolutionising the recruitment industry.
And I love that, revolutionising, taking over the world. And, this whole concept, I passionately do believe that the traditional, whereas there might be a place for the traditional recruiter model, and I think some people love that both from a recruitment side and a client side, and maybe even a candidate side. I think there is a sea change from some small business owners where they want something a little bit different. They're just fed up with the old model. So we're going to get onto that in a few moments. So can you just go back kind of 4 and a bit years when you were both in other jobs and you had this Eureka moment that you wanted to set up Fresh Perspective Resourcing? What was that trigger point? What happened and why?
We had the other job together, didn't we?
Yeah, so we did try before we buy.
Yeah, we worked together at our previous company as an in-house recruitment team together. So we had that Eureka moment probably together at work, didn't we?
Yeah, I think because it was really good that we worked together, and that was probably across 3 years, wasn't it? That we spent time. So I actually worked for Laura in that, so I reported into Laura.
I taught her everything she knows.
And I think it was that whole glass ceiling, not able to progress, and money's not our main motivator by any stretch of the imagination. It's probably really quite low down on our list of priorities and our focus. But when you're told that you can't earn more money as being tenacious, proactive people, that's kind of a bit like putting shackles on you, isn't it? And telling you that you can't do something, and we hate that.
We just had our annual appraisals, and we've been told we've been both individually and as a team. We had another person working with us. We've done fantastic things, but there was never any progression, never any pay reviews. And we were both, you were in your late 20s, and I was in my early 30s. Like, well, it's not very inspiring. And then we thought, well, maybe we should have a go at it ourselves because we learned a lot from being internal. We both worked for agencies beforehand, and we were a client of agencies when we were in house, and we were just consistently disappointed with the service we got as a customer. We didn't enjoy being an employee of a recruitment agency, and also we've both been let down as candidates. So we thought, well, let's do something ourselves, but it has to be something different because there's so many agencies all doing it the same way. It's going to be hard enough having a new business as it is. We need to not make it more difficult by being a recruiter, because most people think they don't like recruiters. So that was where we had the idea to do it like you would if you were an internal team, but instead of just doing it for one business, we have multiple companies that we help.
And I suppose at the core of that, it was driven by ethics, values, morals, and all the good stuff. They were the foundations that we laid down at the beginning, and I suppose they've never changed. They underpin every single decision that we make.
And again, we'll touch on those in a few moments, but that's a tough call. That is, you've never run a business before, you decide to set up and run a business, and you decide to do something completely different to how most other businesses are doing it. Most people that set up a business copy a business model that in their views is working largely. You decided to do something completely different when you've never run a business before. Isn't that a huge risk?
I never thought about it.
That's because we're crazy, but we are crazy. We love making waves. We love disrupting things. We like to challenge and mix things up a bit. And so doing that I think that's just in our nature. We are little rebels like that. And I think, having a team of 6 women as well, just absolutely smashing through lockdown. Again, we do like to get our hands dirty, don't we, and go for the crazy. We never go for the easy option. ever.
But you know, this concept of wanting to be in control of your own destiny, you're never going to be in control of your own destiny while ever somebody else is looking after your career progression, your salary, your what you can and can't do.
Yeah.
So sometimes you've got to be a little bit crazy if you want to be in charge of your own destiny, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. But even just saying that sentence, I kind of think that our girls, like when you said someone else is in control, I think that those things that you've listed there, that our girls have probably got more control than your average employee over those things.
Yeah.
I really, really do. I think they do have control over the money that they earn and the opportunities that they have and the training that they could get involved in. I think I think just you saying that, I was like, I think it's much better for our team.
Yeah, well, you say that's another thing that why we wanted to set up, because we've never enjoyed being an employee of a recruitment agency, and even in the internal job, our leader, in terms of our line manager, was great at what he did, but he, in our opinion, wasn't the best manager of people, and he wasn't a bad guy. He just wasn't a good leader. So again, we kind of learned how we wanted to do it based on seeing other people do it
Badly.
and not how we would do it.
But it's that lack of interest, isn't it? It's that whole cliche manager thing. People end up as managers. They don't actually really care about people. They just want to be doing something else, but it's a natural sort of progression. And it's that age-old thing that a lot of the tiny managers might not actually be interested in what you do, and that it doesn't really make a good manager, does it?
No, definitely not.
But you know, this is 101 leadership for me, because leadership is about inspiring your team to then inspire their team, and there's a cascade effect. So, you know, if you're a good leader, you're going to encourage people to make the most of themselves, to make the most of the business, to earn as much money, to have that, you know, that to be in charge of their own destiny. Whereas if you're not a leader per se, you're gonna quash all of those. So the fact that you're presenting leadership skills to allow your team to the fact that you're presenting leadership skills that allow your team to earn more money, to be in charge of their own destiny, to be in control, is testament to the character of the pair of you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. They mean the world to us. They are literally everything. They are our bread and butter. They're what we get up in the morning for. So creating a safe space. I mean, we are really passionate about creating an environment where people don't feel anxious about coming to work. As someone I've probably been anxious for most of my life, and it's obviously got better as I've got older and I've got more control of it, but I never want our staff to feel like that. I don't want them to waste one day out of the week feeling anxious about turning up to work, and I genuinely do think we've created that environment where they don't feel like that, and if they did, they could come to us and discuss it.
Yeah, they're like additional family members.
100%. Yeah, the sisters from other misters.
So just in plain English then, just tell me, this business model that you've said, look, largely wasn't working in recruitment in a lot of areas. I mean, there are some doing it very, very well, so let's not suggest that everybody's doing it wrong, but I think there are SMEs for me that want something a little bit different. And I'll give you a quick example. So I've got a client who, before I worked with him, used a recruitment agency to recruit a salesperson out on the road, and he paid thick end of $5,000. And then the day they started, they didn't have a driving license. And he challenged them on it, and they said, well, it's not our responsibility to find out if an external salesperson has a driving license. And at no point did they accept responsibility. At no point did they offer to replace him or even give him any money back. And it's finished up falling out with him. And that for me is fundamentally wrong. So what is it you're doing differently that you think is a breath of fresh air, a fresh perspective?
How long have you got?
And by the way, we won't slag recruiters off in the slightest. We don't. I absolutely think there's a place in recruitment agencies. I think a lot of them aren't built on values and morals, but I think that some are. And I think that it can be done well. And I think the people who want to pay for something right at the end should go to recruitment agencies. Our model isn't like that. You pay for the service that we provide, not that bum on a seat. So it's so different. So if you want to pay for a bum on a seat, then you're probably not right coming to us anyway, if that makes sense. So there is a place for it, isn't there?
Yeah, we've not everybody wants to work to our model because it is different and they're not used to it, and some are just not interested in it. And in that case, we have recommended them to other recruitment agencies that we know and trust to do a good job and do it for the right reason. So it's finding the right people for the right company, not just any person for any company as quickly as possible for as much money as you can get. It isn't about any of those things other than matching the right people with businesses and vice versa. So that's what we do. We always say it's recruitment with a few twists. So the main twists are we guarantee or promise to fill every vacancy that we take on. We operate across all sectors because we worked for an IT company as their internal team. So a lot of what we recruited was IT. But as a medium-sized business, they still needed sales, marketing, finance, admin, HR. So that's what Fresh is a recruitment partner. You don't need different agencies for clerical, finance, IT, and tech. We can do it all as just one trusted partner, bolted onto a business, operating as if we are that recruitment department. We're just not employed, 365 days a year. We're outsourced, and they only pay us when they actually need to use us. And so our unique pricing model is the third twist. And then the fourth one comes from our customers who call us a breath of fresh air. And they say that the fourth one is that we truly care, which is less tangible. We can't necessarily prove that until you've worked with us. But it's really nice to know that that's how they feel.
Yeah.
Because in most conversations start with, oh, I hate recruiters, or I've used recruiters and had a bad experience, and can't believe I'm on the phone with you. And it's awful that I would say 90% of people that we speak to have had at least one bad experience with recruitment. And it's mostly because they feel like they've been pushed around and not listened to, they've spent a lot of money, they've not got value. And so we add common sense and ethics and morals to it, working with them collaboratively as a partner. We save money, we add a load of other value, helping with interviews and job specs and retention. It isn't just about getting someone in a job and taking money, it's about what can we do together to achieve a common goal. And it isn't rocket science.
No, it's not. It's a solution, isn't it? It's a recruitment solution. So for example, if we would look at what you're good at and what you're not so good at. So if you're great at interviewing people, but you're rubbish at all the stuff before it gets to that point, you need quite a bit of help, because you've still got to attract people to you. So we kind of will assess it. We'll almost do a bit of a fact find, really, and see what's going on, see what's sort of under the covers of your recruitment processes, and then we'll figure out what will fit with you. So we don't just try and sell you something that isn't right for you. It's very, very individual. And I think another thing to sort of add on Laura's point, that we become a company's brand ambassador. If we can't become your brand ambassador because we don't believe in you, then we don't take the work on. So whenever we go to market with a role, it's because we truly believe and care about that customer, which is very, very different from the agencies that I've worked in, not saying any others because I don't have proof.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, I think, a lot of the bigger, more corporate agencies where it's numbers are more ruthless, and there isn't a customer service. And a lot of the smaller independent agencies will deliver a great service, won't they? And if you add on to that great service a different pricing model, because look, take that example I gave you, he hates that recruitment company with a passion. He will never use them because they've completely and utterly had him over. So even if they've had great service, their model that said it's $5,000, take it or leave it, just didn't work for him. So it's a combination of things, isn't it? Around working with the right clients, being brand ambassadors, having a different kind of pricing model, delivering great service, and taking time to really understand the end-to-end process and where their strengths and weaknesses are.
Yeah, I think one of our biggest things is that we treat all people with kindness and respect, whether they're a candidate, a contact, an employee, a friend, a family member, or a customer. Everyone's treated the same as humans. No one is put on a pedestal and treated like king or queen, and we treat candidates with courtesy, even if they're not right for the job. They're still people. Now, I think a lot of people think our office is pink and fluffy and we just sit around drinking tea all day, but as a business strategy, it seems to be working well for us.
And there's nothing worse, is there, as a candidate, where you put your CV in and you never hear a thing, and it is soul destroying, and it just makes you think twice about that agency. Am I just a number on a spreadsheet? Do they actually care?
I do think this, but I'm very torn. I think, and there's two things I'm going to say here. So with regards to clients, I think a lot of people have negative experiences with recruiters, but ultimately it does start with them. And I think if you always take responsibility for your own actions, then life will probably get a bit easier for you anyway. So for example, I never have a good experience with recruiters, but I'm always going to keep them at arm's length. I'm not going to tell them anything. And I'm going to, I'm going to be really shady about it, but I expect an amazing service. And you've got to trust someone. If you're going to work with them, this is why we find it quite frustrating when a client works with 10 plus recruiters. Because you wouldn't work with 10 plus accountants or financial advisors or HR partners. But when it comes to recruitment, you do. And therefore, you get a diluted experience of what it's like. And it doesn't feel good. And I totally get that. Because how can you have a decent relationship when you're getting 10 people to do one job? And then you're in this gunfight. And it loses any kind of credibility. So I think everything does start with you first. And that's the same with candidates. A lot of candidates will moan and they've got these really high expectations on recruiters to just fall over themselves to provide an amazing service. But yet their CV is utterly rubbish. And I think you've got to help yourself first. And if you've done everything you can for yourself and then you're trusting someone else, then fair enough, expect a decent service. But it's got to start with you first.
Yeah. Yeah.
But don't you think that, and I agree with you absolutely 100%, don't you think that a lot of companies have their recruiters at arm's length, or they use multiple because they've had a bad experience, and so they're naturally defensive, aren't they?
I think but also they know, because a lot of the time when we speak to clients, and again we can only go off our own experiences and I suppose the research and evidence that we've gathered since having Fresh. And the sort of general consensus with regards to clients using multiple agencies is usually because they'll have a better spread of the market. The more people you throw out there, the more interest you'll generate, which is rubbish. Because they just a lot of people will ring fence the market. They'll tell you that your CV's gone here and then you think it hasn't. It actually hasn't. And it just becomes so much more confusing and complicated when it doesn't need to. We've all got the same tools. What matters is how you approach the market, how well you brand yourself, whether you come across as a trusted partner, because that's when candidates will start to speak to you. If you come across as a sharky recruiter, then it doesn't matter how good you are at knowing about a development language. People are still not going to speak to you anyway.
Absolutely.
If you're saying that people have had a bad experience in recruitment, which is why they treat us the way that they do, or think they can and hold us at arm's length, and feel the need to work with multiple and not build relationships, that why is it only recruitment that's treated like that? You don't do that if you've had a bad experience with accountants, which we've had, or if you've had a bad experience with website delivery, as we have had. We still let the next one in. We make sure we question them more, and we're better at picking.
But we trust like we've never been hurt before.
Yeah, we do. And it's the same with relationships. Like, you might have been cheated on in the past, and someone's broke up with you, and it's been awful. But that doesn't stop you from wanting to get out there again eventually and meet somebody new and trust them and build a relationship with them. So I don't understand why is it only with recruitment, or maybe bank managers and estate agents and car sales, and we're all put in the same category? Why are we treated differently to any other profession?
I agree, and it's not right. But what you're trying to do, from what you've told me, is you've trying to convince people that they don't need to hedge the bets. If they can work with a business that's value aligned, puts customer service at the heart of everything it does, has got a team that's lined up, goes about delivering value across the entire end-to-end rather than just a bum on a seat and a fee, then it's up to you to prove that they don't need to do that.
Absolutely, I completely agree with you, and I think we prove that every single day successfully.
So at the beginning though, or else it won't work. Well, I agree with you that through what we say, what we show them, how we deliver a pitch or a proposal or engage with them, we need to earn their trust, like we need to earn their respect as well. Yeah. So
these values that you hold very close to you, and I can spend all day chatting about values because it's a drum I beat very often, but you've got to be true to your values in business, I believe. But where a lot of small business owners and early stage business owners go wrong, they might get a customer that approaches them that wants to spend money, but they're not value aligned. They know they're going to be a pain in the ass, but they need the money. And money often will trump that. And they'll think, do you know what? I can get them to change. I can ignore that bit. That's not going to manifest itself. And the reality is it does. Was there ever a scenario with you where you had a potential chunk of business with somebody that wasn't value aligned, and you were kind of, what do we do here? So talk me through that scenario.
Yeah.
It's happened a few times, not recently, because we learned from our mistakes and we have turned down business quite a lot over the past couple of years because it's not worth the hassle that comes with getting the wrong customer. So it's quite empowering and also a tiny bit terrifying saying no. But there's one customer that jumps out, and we'd hired quite a few people for this company, and then a few months later people started leaving and contacted us because of the relationships we built to tell us they were leaving, and our contact they'd named Hitler. And so we're like, right, we can't, and we looked into this and we realized what was happening, how they were being treated, what they were being spoken to, like, and it was awful. And so we couldn't operate with integrity, knowing that was the actual reality of the situation, because no longer can we say to candidates that this is a great opportunity, it's a good company, etc., because it wasn't true. So we had to, we ended the relationship with that customer because we could no longer work with them. But there's been a couple of others where we've been probably still bearing the scars of the bad decisions we've made earlier on by thinking that we have to say yes to all business. So we've definitely learned the hard way, but I think those are the lessons that you learn and you don't forget.
You do, and look at the,
Oh, isn't it? It's good to do that. I think we've got to make mistakes to get better every day. Like, we're massive advocates of feedback and being able to take negative, constructive, whatever you want to call it, feedback on board in a good way so that you can be better. We want to be better every single day, and until we come off course, we're never going to figure out how to get back on course in a successful way. So we were called dizzy and fluffy and all these things off a financial services company that's quite local, as to reasons why they didn't like working with us. And we thought, and that's the exact reason why we don't like working with you either, because you think these things about you. We don't need to tell you what we think of you, but this match is no longer made in heaven. But it makes you learn stuff, and we quiz clients. Like, if you come to us and say, I want to work with you, we will not say we want to work with you. We want to find out about you. We want to figure out.
We get you to do the disc profile.
Yeah.
That's all right. Because look, recruitment is in a very, very unique position, because you've got two customers, haven't you? You've got the candidate and the client. You've got that client there that isn't a good leader and is treating his team in a way that's forcing them to leave. You've got to be loyal to your candidates as well as the client, and that's the unique thing, that you've got to balance those. That's why values is important. You've got to balance those two relationships equally.
Yeah, gotcha. If we pulled a candidate, say the candidate was happy because they were on LinkedIn and it's a headhunt, so we call it passive and active candidates. So active candidates are the ones that apply for a job, whereas your passive ones are the ones that are not applying but could maybe be persuaded. Yeah, if they're kind of looking. And I suppose if I lost my train of thought then, the wooing. What was it going with that?
If you pulled a candidate out of a job.
Yeah, if we pulled a candidate out of a role where they've not necessarily actively looked, and if we put them into a position that was awful and they turned out really unhappy, that would genuinely upset us. We absolutely do not want to do that. It's quite a big thing for us, and that's why we quiz every single candidate gets qualified to hire them, but so do clients as well, because ultimately we're trying to match the two parties up, and if they're not right, that's fine. We don't force anything just to kind of get that quick win, that quick fix. Well, it's got to be done.
If people are if business owners are going to trust you that you deliver a great job, you're going to want that candidate to be there as long as possible.
Absolutely.
And if that candidate's there as long as possible, not only is the client going to go, I'm happy, and you're delivering a great service, because that candidate is still bum on seat 2 years later, but that candidate's also going to tell all of their mates, they got me a great job and it's been amazing and they looked after me all the way. If you just put somebody in place and 4 months later they're out there again, it's not going to do your brand any good.
No, definitely not. And that is a big problem in the recruitment industry, the whole taking from and sourcing candidates. There's this loop that happens. So a lot of recruiters will place a candidate in a particular role and then come back 12 months later and place them again. This is one of the big reasons why it's got such a terrible reputation, and something that we absolutely do not do. If you're a client, you're a client. You're not someone we would take from.
So going back a little bit, just to dig a little bit deeper from something you mentioned earlier. So you were in-house recruiters and you decided that you weren't in control of your own destiny, with regards to you know, how you wanted to do work, the pay that you wanted, the career progression that you wanted. Where did you get your evidence from? How did you find insight that told you that the traditional recruitment model wasn't working?
Every single person you speak to about recruitment, everyone's got an opinion on it, whether they are a recruiter, they've worked for one as a recruitment consultant, or not, you know, admin, etc., or a customer or candidates. Nearly everyone's had some exposure to recruitment in one way or another. And a lot of those, unfortunately, have had a bad experience in some form. So we just collected experiences, I suppose, from lots of different people that we worked with in the past, kept in touch with, who we worked with at that time, and just evidence, I suppose, we've been collecting it without even realising we've been collecting it over the years. We've been working in recruitment for a long time. I've been in it just over 13 and a half years. How long have you been? About 8. Yeah. So we've worked in it a lot with different businesses, doing different types of recruitment in different ways. So it was almost that journey without realising it. We've been collecting information.
We naturally try and make situations better though. So for example, if one of the girls comes into work and says something's wrong, like me and Laura will just naturally try and fix that problem, which can probably be a bit annoying sometimes. Like we know how to fix it. We do this all the time. So we naturally problem solve probably too much. So that was, I suppose, the way that Fresh came about. We were problem solving. We were creating a fix for our industry, for what we do, and making it better for the people that wanted it to be better. Because some people just like moaning, don't they? They quite like a negative experience because they get to moan about it and it gives them purpose. But for the people who actually did want something different, we've provided that for them. But it's not just like we decided to do that 4 and a bit years ago and then start. We collect feedback all the time. So we do feedback training with our team. We ask for feedback at the end of the project. We ask for feedback during the project, before it starts. So we're constantly collecting things to make it better. Our model is not static in any way, shape or form. It's really, really fluid and it's ever changing, isn't it?
It's changed a lot since we set up. And I think one of the questions we ask the most is, but why though?
Why though? Yeah, we always ask why. Ask our team why. Again, probably an annoying amount. But otherwise, how do you know?
No, look, it's a question I ask all the time. Why are you doing that? Why? Because it allows you to dig and then get right to the heart of what the actual problem is.
Definitely.
You mentioned earlier that you know, getting knocked off course teaches you how to get back on course. What are some of the other big mistakes that you've made that you've learned from that have really put you in a good place right now?
Hiring the wrong people.
Okay. And was that because you were hiring not on values in hindsight?
Yeah, kind of. We are a bit of a sucker for a sob story and
or a problem to solve.
Yeah, so, and we know this, and we do, and not feel sorry for, because that's a terrible way of putting it, but it's probably the easiest way to explain it now. But again, we do kind of bring people into our little, take them under our wing and look after them. We love empowering people. We love, like, our girls, one's come from Starbucks, one's come for a cashier at Nationwide, one came from Next, the retailer. And so they've come from these roles where they didn't feel like they had much purpose, and these are their words. And now we will give them that platform for them to go and just kick the world's ass and really, really make something of themselves. So I think, going back to your question, we have made those mistakes in terms of hiring, but if we hadn't have made those mistakes, we wouldn't have the team that we've got today.
Well, we learned from it. So one of the mistakes we made with hiring, we weren't hiring someone to deliver recruitment. It was the first time we'd hired someone to almost be more of an help us on the admin side of things, which we thought was a different personality type. Mine and Emily's personality type is very similar, and we don't like a lot of detail. We don't like doing administrative types of tasks. We're quite ideas led, and so on paper we were hiring someone, and there was a woman that we really, really liked, and I felt it in my gut that I wanted to hire her. But we went with the science, what the personality profile said, so we went with what it was on paper. And I did not like the lady that we hired, but if I was just hiring on gut feeling and how I felt and just instinct, I wouldn't have hired her. And she wasn't the right person for the team. She didn't fit in with the rest of the team well. and it didn't work out. But we've learned so much from that mistake. We'll never make that mistake again. And we'll go back to doing what we were doing before that, which we know works for us.
So it's a values fit now all the time.
Yeah.
Oh,
So on that particular scenario, how long after you set her on did you realize it wasn't right, and then how long did it take you to do something about it?
Probably in the first 2 to 4 weeks, we realised it wasn't right. And was it 3 months?
Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it? You prefer to get dumped than do the dumping. I think, but that's the coward's way, absolutely.
But again, we realised that if it's just not right, then we just need to be brave and pull ourselves, just woman up and just admit that we made a mistake earlier on rather than let it go on for longer. We're just hoping that it would work itself out in the end.
But
doing everything we tell our clients not to do.
But we do use ourselves as guinea pigs so that it can be better for our customers. 100%.
Look, we're all plumbers with a leaking tap to some respects, aren't we? But you've got to live and breathe by your own values and your own way that you do business. The one thing that never fails to astonish me is, when a client that I'm working with or somebody that I've been chatting to said, look, we're going to extend the probationary period. I think within the first 2 to 4 weeks, you've hit the nail on the head. I think if within the first two weeks usually, but no later than 4, if somebody's going to fit in or not. So a 3-month probationary period is a complete waste of time because after a month.
Yeah.
And then to get to 3 months and go, I'm going to extend the probationary period. What that really says is it's a bit like going back to your relationship scenario. I know that they're not the right long-term partner and we're not going to get married, but I'm just going to keep putting up with it. It just doesn't work, does it?
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
But you say that, but you'll know in the first 2 to 4 weeks if they're the right cultural fit in terms of your value set, your personality, etc. But what you might need the probation period for, or an extension of it, is the skill set that they've got the potential, they're a good fit for the team, they just need a little bit more time than you anticipated, and bringing them up to a skill level that you need for them to be able to do the job well. So see, that's probably where we would utilise the probation period now. And now we know that we always have to hire for values.
Yeah, look, absolutely. If I had a client that took on a bookkeeper and she was value aligned, but what was very clear after 3 months is she couldn't bloody add up. And, her experience that she talked about on her CV wasn't as good as it was. So she did extend a probationary period, but it was to assess the technical competency, and ultimately she had to let her go. But if you're ever, if I take a salesperson as an example, if you're extending a salesperson's probationary period because they've not delivered results, because they're not getting out there, they're not selling, they're not picking the phone up, they're not knocking on doors, that's a lack of value alignment. That's not a technical competency.
Yeah. Oh, it's so tough though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It's really tough.
And I think one of the biggest challenges for me is how do you assess, because the recruitment process isn't hours and hours and hours typically. It's 1 hour here, 1 hour there, maybe 3 at most. How can you really assess whether somebody is honest, ethical, hardworking, high attention to how can you really, really assess those?
I do think that's where your gut instinct comes in. I do think that your non-verbal part of your brain has a massively vital part in these kind of situations. You don't actually know what it is about someone, but you either really, really warm to them, or there's just something about them that you don't trust, and you don't know what it is. You can't verbalize it or put it into words. So I do think trusting your gut, trusting your instincts.
Being self-aware, isn't it? If you're self-aware, then you can usually pick up on other cues. If you're not self-aware and you don't have that, then you will struggle picking up on those social cues and you will make mistakes. And so it's that kind of thing, really, isn't it? Yeah. It's knowing. I suppose we do quite a lot on ego, learning about the ego. We do a lot of mind stuff. Like we're really quite into this, like the psychology behind things. So I suppose that kind of gives us an idea of, how to judge people. And we've made mistakes because we've fallen for sob stories and we've been soft and that kind of stuff when it comes to recruiting ourselves. But ultimately, we know in our heart of hearts, it's like when a relationship's just heading south and you think, I know, but is it? And you just got this, you go in, it's your angel, isn't it? But it's being able to think, right, we need to stop now. we know how we think here. Let's listen up and take action.
It's doing research as well. So obviously we do the initial screen, and we ask a lot of questions and push on why did they leave certain things, and we don't just accept, we push for more depth, more of an answer. And then in the interview, it's asking them different types of things. What do they care about? What's important to them? What motivates and drives them? What are they inspired by, etc. And then we get them to do the personality test. We get them to do bits, to do a piece of writing. And then we do research, so you can check them out on any social media platform to back up if they say what they've said is true. Because if they say, oh, I hate going out, and I don't like drinking alcohol, and you go on Facebook and their profile picture's got a martini in their hand, like, they're not telling the truth. So then your alarm bells start to ring a little bit. And again, you make sure you always take references. So there's so many points of research, as well as your gut instincts, and your emotions, I suppose. That you need to rely on a wide range of tools to make sure, as much as you can, because you're still dealing with people, and some people are just better at
lying.
Yeah, and I was going to swear. So it's just making sure that you use a lot of different areas and points of reference and research, really. And then sometimes you can do everything right, and you still might not make the right decision, but you mitigate against that happening as much as you can.
Yeah, and I think adding to what Laura said as well, it's creating an interview structure that is equal, that is just as much about the candidate as it is for the client. Because I think when you make it just as much about the candidate as it is about you, the client, then you will naturally draw out more information, more honesty, more vulnerability from that candidate, because you are allowing them to be themselves. If you create this dominant and passive, which is what 99% of the interviews out there, if you create that and you're barking questions, then 10 minutes before the end you go, right, so have you got any questions? That is not good enough anymore. It's absolutely not. How can you expect that person to make a decision where they're going to spend a third of their life in this environment, in this place, when you're only allowing them 10 minutes to ask questions? For me, that is where it all goes wrong. So we really we create interview documentation for our clients. We really get them to understand the candidate throughout that process, and ask that candidate to come prepared, ask them to ask questions at this juncture, and how do you feel about what I've just said to you? Do you agree with my statement? Actually have a meeting, and not this interview where we're just, it's all about us, the client, when it's not.
Yeah, it's not. Do have questions, but because they've been grilled to
scared to death,
they've forgotten them, and then the interview is disappointed that there's no questions at the end, and probably doesn't give them another chance when they've just been terrified and never really talked with.
And then they ultimately make a decision to go with that role if it's offered, because they don't have another role, and they're heading into something that they're uncertain whether it's going to fulfill.
Because how would they know?
Yeah.
How would they know off 3 questions? Oh, hang on, I'm going to make a decision that I could be doing it for the next 5 years. I've only asked 3 questions, but I'm going to do it anyway because the money's good.
Well, this is another bugbear of mine. In this situation, the candidate's not necessarily sure what they should do. So they will go to their recruiter who they trust. Why wouldn't they not trust them? And ask for their opinion. And I've seen it happen, and I've seen it happen both ways, where the good recruiters go, if you don't feel that it's 100% right, then don't take the job. But equal amounts of them are saying, well, that's just their interview style. They're not really like that in real life. So I suggest you take the job, don't worry about it. And I was influencing to make that decision as a trusted advisor. And that's what really upsets me about the recruitment industry, that people do that when people trust them, and then they end up in the wrong jobs, they don't stay, and it's not good. And
then ultimately it comes down to you that candidate wasn't very good, they didn't stay there very long. So whereas the traditional recruiters would be saying, here's an opportunity for another fee, you're looking at it going, that's damaging my reputation.
100%.
And so this is a slightly different tack that we need to be taking now.
Yeah, we want people to stay. We want to help businesses do what they want to do. So you've got to find out what that company wants to do, what their drive is, what their goals are, and then look at the kind of people that are going to come on their journey with them. And unless you're creating that sort of equality between the two parties where they can be themselves and figure out whether it's right for each side, then you're not going to get the outcome. But I think it's educating clients. So how many clients get taught to interview candidates?
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's ever been taught how to interview unless they work with us, and we're like, we will teach you how to interview people. So the interview, they're like, I'm just going to print off 10 competency-based questions off Google and just shout at this candidate and over they accept the job. And it's a recipe for disaster, but it's because there's lack of education out there. Recruitment's so important. It is vital for a company. But yeah, it's treated with just
unnecessary evil, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
I've only been for about 2 or 3 job interviews in my life, thank goodness. And what I did on each one is I got there about 25 minutes early. I don't like being late anyway, but I got there 25 minutes early and I just sat in reception and I watched and I listened and I consumed. And I said, look, I'm here early. Don't tell them I'm here yet. I'm here early. I just wanted to make sure I got here early and find out where it was, etc. But I just observed everything that was going on. I observed how the receptionist was acting. I observed how the team that were coming out of the office, and I could get a feel for the quality and the values in the organization. You know, if I walk in one where the receptionist is gossiping to everybody and slagging people off and slagging customers off after you put the phone down, that tells me it's not a good culture in the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. This is really, really good. You should tell people about this. That's a LinkedIn video there, Gary.
but you know, but for me, I think, you know, I absolutely agree with you. The candidates are under so much pressure because they're out of work and they're knee-jerk at making a decision. And I think if they're with the right recruitment partner that's going to hold the hand, teach them how to interview the client as much as the client's interviewing them, give them enough options so there isn't only one option, and it's going to build your brand, build your reputation from both a client and a candidate side.
It's like when we were saying before about when, you know, you're early in stages of business and you take on all business because you don't want to say no. It's this is the candidate's perspective. It's not just taking the first thing that comes along and being brave enough and trusting in yourself enough to go, you know what, I'm not sure if this is 100%, so I'm just going to sit with this and go into these interviews first, and then I'm going to make an informed decision based on all the facts and not rush into it and not be rushed into it. I think that it's being strong and not letting anyone make you feel like the job is scarce or there's a time frame on it. And if they really want you, they'll wait a few more days for you to make the decision, because it's a massive thing and it's really important, and it's to just not be rushed, which you would never do. Obviously, if they're taking 2 weeks, I'm like, come on, taking the mick now. Yeah. But it's a big decision for people, and it's giving them some empathy, some kindness, some compassion and patience.
Yeah.
Ladies, you've shared some fantastic insight, a real kind of eye-opener for a lot of clients that would ultimately watch this, a lot of businesses, a lot of candidates that might watch it. You know, I think for me, this is why I was looking forward to this afternoon so much, because I love to disrupt. I love to do something different. I love to really challenge the status quo. And I think you've shared some great pearls of wisdom, both for me, because there's a couple of things I'll probably do differently when I'm with my clients, but also for all the people out there that are, you know, going to be going through that recruitment process over the next few months. So I really do appreciate your time. I'm just going to open it up to questions for all those that have joined us. So if you've got any questions, please let us know. Post those in the comments box, and we'll take it from there. Is there anything, while we're just waiting for those questions, is there anything you want to add? Anything that you feel passionate about that you've not covered?
I suppose it's just, I think any pearl of wisdom I would ever have for someone setting up a business is just to figure out why you want to do something and do something that you do feel passionate about. We mentioned that word a few times during this webinar, and I've said it a few times recently. It's Shoe Dog, the book by Phil Knight, the guy who set up Nike. He used to sell photocopiers and he was really bad at it, and then he started selling shoes, and he was like, I'm so good at selling shoes. Why am I much better at selling shoes than I am photocopiers? And he figured out that it's because it was his why. He cared about selling shoes because he was a runner, so he understood the importance of a good shoe, and he had passion for it. And look at the heady heights is what he's achieved, and that's the biggest thing I took from that book. And I think me and Emily feel like that about Fresh, and I feel like everyone should feel like that about what they do, whether you run your own business, you're employed by somebody else. It's figuring out what it is that drives you, what your why is, what your passion is, and doing something that feeds it, really, feeds into it.
Absolutely.
And once you've figured that out, then brand that to death. Yeah. So that else knows that's who you are, what you stand for, what you're about, and then you will attract the right things because you're putting yourself out there. If you just think it inside your head, you're not going to attract the right people because they're still not going to know that. And that's why, you know, from watching our videos, from watching our girls' videos, whatever you see of Fresh is consistent with our brand. It's very much like we're forward facing. You get on every single thing that we put out there, it's an insight into who we are. There's no different. You'll walk through the door, you'll get greeted by a dog, there'll be music on, there'll be people singing, they'll be doing lives. There's all sorts of stuff going on all the time, but it's no different. That's what we put out there.
Yeah.
And for me, it's make sure, like, even if you've got to fake the confidence of putting it out there and really showing up, it will soon start to feel comfortable and you will just get so much more back. And I think that's why we've survived and we have come out stronger through COVID. Probably not a lot of recruitment companies have, but because we are so consistent and I suppose that supportive, empowering environment, but we show up every single day. And we're so easy to find as a result of that, to get more clients, candidates, whatever it is that we want.
And that for me is exactly what this webinar series is about. Yes, we wanted some insight into your business model and you as people, but it's really that bit around being in control of your own destiny and just finding that thing that you absolutely want to do and love doing and are passionate about doing, that puts fire in your belly every single day. Yeah. Because if you're doing that, you never have to work a day as long as you live. Exactly. So you know, you two really embody that, and that's why I love the pair of you so much, is because you just got fire in your belly for what you do, and that's, you know, when I'm with clients, I want to, often when they come to me, they don't have that fire in the belly, they've fallen out of love with the business, and for me it's about finding that why again, finding that purpose, digging back in and reminding them why they're building the business they are, because if you don't have that fire in your belly every day, you're building the wrong business.
Absolutely, or you're just working for the wrong business. It doesn't matter what it is, there's a reason, isn't there?
Yeah, and it's hard. You know, running a business, working, you know, for someone else, it's you know, there will be ups and downs and challenging times, and if you've got that passion and fire in your belly for it, you will get through it, and you'll get through it easier than if you don't feel like that about something. It'll be much harder.
Absolutely. So ladies,
go back.
Absolutely. So for all those watching this, where is the best place that they can get in touch with you? I'm going to send a note out tomorrow. So where's the best place that they can get in touch with you?
Gotta be LinkedIn. LinkedIn's our baby.
LinkedIn's your baby. So
yeah, buying it off Microsoft soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Might cost you a couple of quid. So look, again, fantastic insight. I've thoroughly enjoyed that. It's been fun all the way through. So, you know, thanks again for joining us. Thanks for that insight into Fresh Perspective resourcing and why you think there's a different business model to be had. And, you know, really you driving that kind of brand that you've got that's out there. That is why I first got in touch with you. So thanks ever so much for that. You know, this is all around helping people build the right business. And I think you've shared a load of insight to be able to do that. So ladies, thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Gary.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.